Hello everyone, my name is Mario Tiazzo and I'm the Data Analysis and Visualization Librarian here at UMB Libraries. In this course, we'll mainly be using the PISA datasets for our data analysis, which is great, in part because the data has already been cleaned. That said, you may still want to manipulate or augment the data to fit your needs. Today, we're going to take a quick look at a few ways to manipulate your string data, joining and separating strings. Here we have a dataset I created about a fictional list of people, which are separated in first name and last name. What if you wanted to merge both data points into one column and call it full name? To do so, we could use the concatenate formula. This takes strings or numbers and sticks them together. We do this by pressing equal. I'll do it right here in this empty cell in C3. The name of the formula, concatenate. Open the parenthesis. Click on the first data point in the first column. Press the comma to let Excel know that we are moving to the next argument. Now we could click on the last name, but that would stick the first name and the last name together. We want to have a space between the first name and the last name, so we will let Excel know that we want a space. And we do this by opening a quotation mark, putting a space, and closing the quotation mark. This lets Excel know that we want a space there. We press the comma again to let Excel know that we are moving on to the next argument. And now we click on the last name. We close the parenthesis and we press enter. There we go. We can now go back to that cell, double click on the square at the bottom right corner of the cell to get the formula all the way down to the bottom of the data series. Alternatively, you could also do this by using the ampersands instead of the concatenate formula. I'll have an example here. I'll use the last example, Seymour Lambert. So I would press the equal sign again, click on the first name, in this case Seymour, use the ampersand to combine them. Now we want a space, so same as before, quotation mark, space, quotation mark, another ampersand to bind that together, and click on the last name and press enter. You'll get the same result. It's up to you to figure out which method works best for you. I'm just going to remove this for now, and I'm going to tag this full name. Okay, what if you had the full name like you do in column C, but now you wanted to separate the names into two distinct data points? We can use a text before and a text after formulas to do this. Here, go to an empty cell, press the equal sign and the name of the formula, in this case text before, open the parenthesis. We notice that it has two required arguments and then a bunch of optional ones that are indicated by the square brackets. We'll get to those later on. So the first argument is the text. So we'd use the full name here. We press the comma to let Excel know that we are moving on to the next argument. And now we have the delimiter. So what Excel is going to be looking for before it stops. So because we want the first name only, we want it to stop basically at the space. So that will be our delimiter. So we remember that we can tell Excel that we want space, quotation mark, space, quotation mark. Close a parenthesis. And now we only have the first name. Now let's drag this down. And we have all our first names. I'll put first name here. Now remember those arguments that I talked to you about. We have a bunch of optional ones. So we have the instance num argument is the instance of the delimiter after which you want to extract the text. The default is 1, so it would be, in this case, the first space. If you put a negative number, it starts searching from the end. So -2 would be the second instance of the space in this text. The match mode, 0, which is the default, is case sensitive. If you put 1, it's case insensitive. The match end, so 0, if a match is not found, it puts n/a, which is the default. If you put a 1, if a match could not be found, it just returns the original value. It doesn't return an error. If not found argument. So if your match end is 0, it would automatically put n/a if it can't find a match. But you can override that by writing something in this section. You could put another value instead of n/a, such as not found, for example. Let's move on to the last name now. It's essentially the same process, except now we use the text after formula. So we go to the next cell here in F3, equals the name of the formula, text after, open the parenthesis. We notice that it requires two arguments and then a bunch of optional ones that are indicated by the square bracket, which are the same as the text before optional ones. So the first argument is a text, which is the full name. We put a comma to let Excel know that we are moving on to the next argument. Now we are looking for the delimiter. In this case, the delimiter is also a space. So we will put quotation mark, space, quotation mark, close our parenthesis, press enter. We can double click bottom here. All our last names are populated. Tag it, last name. Okay, let's do it again with a few extra subtleties. Close this, let's open this one. We want to join the province and the country columns into a single column. So again, go here, we'd use the concatenate formula, equal, concatenate, open the parenthesis, province, comma for the next argument. Now, instead of a space here, what if we wanted to put a comma? In order to do this, again, quotation marks. The quotation marks let Excel know that it's a string, we're using text. So anything within a quotation mark gets incorporated as text. So we have a space here, but really what we want is a comma and a space. So let's put a comma and then we have our space and then the end of our quotation mark. Then another comma to let Excel know that we're moving on to the next argument, the country, and we close our parenthesis, we press enter. Now we have New Brunswick, comma, space, Canada. Perfect. Double click and everything gets populated. Here we can put province, comma, country. Now let's separate our concatenated results into two distinct columns. Let's start with the province. We'll go here to do it. Equals, text before, open the parenthesis. Again, we have two required arguments, the text, which would be here, and then comma, the delimiter. The delimiter would be the comma, so we would put quotation mark, comma, quotation mark, and we close a parenthesis, press enter. Great. Drag this down. Terrific. Tag it. Let's move on to the country now. We'll use text after again. Equals, text after, open the parenthesis. The text is here, comma for the next argument. The delimiter, we want to start after the space, so we can put quotation mark, space, quotation mark, close a parenthesis, and press enter. Notice what happened here. We told Excel that we wanted the delimiter to be the space, but there's more than one space in New Brunswick, Canada. There's a space between New and Brunswick, and then there's a space between Brunswick, comma, and Canada. There are a couple of ways that we could solve this. We could use the optional arguments here. Instance num, we don't want the first instance of the space, we want the second instance, and that would work. It would start at the second space. We could do the same thing except start from the back. We say we don't want the first instance, we want the first instance from the end, which would produce the same result. Or we could forget this altogether and say we don't want space, we want comma space, and that would also produce the same result. Any of those ways is fine. I'll just stick with this one for now, and then I'll drag this down. I'll tag it, country, and we're done with this example. Let's move on to our final example here. Sometimes the delimiter is not very obvious, but there's a persistent sequence to the data we are trying to manipulate. Let's look at this example here. We have an email address that always has 4 numeric characters followed by 3 letters. If we wanted to separate the numbers and the letters in their own columns, how could we do this? Let's see one way it can be done using the left and the mid formulas. Let's start with the numbers. We'll use the left formula for this, which takes elements starting from the leftmost region of the data. So I'll go over here, equals the name of the formula, left, open the parenthesis. We notice that it requires 2 arguments, the text and the number of characters. So let's click on our email address here for the text. And we will put a comma here to jump to the next argument. And here the number of characters, we're going to put 4 because we want the 4 first leftmost characters, which are the 4 numbers in this email sequence. Close the parenthesis, press enter. Great. Drag this down. We have numbers here. Note that there is also the right formula, which does the exact same thing, but starting from the right. Next, let's move on to the letters. In this case, we want the 3 letters that follow the 4 numbers in an email address. To do this, we will use the mid formula. Go over here, we'll press equal, the name of the formula, mid, open the parenthesis. We notice that this requires 3 arguments, the text, the starting position, and a number of characters. Let's click on the email address here to provide the text. Press the comma to jump to the next argument. For the starting position, since we want to start after the 4 numbers, the starting position will be 5, which is the first position of the letter sequence. So we'll put 5 here. And again, comma to get to the next argument. Here we need the number of characters. The number of characters will be 3 because we want the 3 letters in the string. 3, close the parenthesis, enter. Double click here. Here are all the letters. Finally, let's look at trying to reconstitute all these components back into an email address using the concatenate formula. So over here, we'll press equal, the name of the formula, concatenate, open the parenthesis. First we want the numbers, comma, then we want the letters, comma, and then we want a text string. So we know we're going to need quotation marks. Open the quotation mark at unb.ca. Close the quotation mark, close the parenthesis. There's our email address. Drag this down, and all our email address have been reconstituted. Tag it, and there you go. Okay, that should be good for now. We've learned how to manipulate strings by joining them and separating them given different scenarios and criteria. I hope that this was helpful. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.